International education wears many faces in Alabama. On an informal basis, every student and teacher is involved in activities geared to improving international understanding. The International House at Jacksonville State University is one example of a formal program organized to improve international understanding. An exchange program between the Huntsville City Schools and Barranquilla, Colombia is in its fourth year. Other programs, such as the Cordell Hull Foundation for Teacher Exchange, American Field Service, and people-to-people programs concerned with student exchange. And programs of the Alliance for Progress, such as the cooperative endeavors of Alabama and Guatemala, serve to provide a better understanding of our neighbors to the south. In January of 1966, the regional education agencies, Project International Education, including Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama, was created under a federal grant through Title V of Public Law 8910. Several projects have been established to foster international education in Alabama. The outstanding project in Alabama is the Goshen Project. Funded through Title V of Public Law 8910. To provide a workshop for the International Education Program, a pilot school was chosen by the state superintendent. This was Goshen School, which is located in Pike County in southeast Alabama. The results of the Goshen experiment and the implications which they have for instruction in international education, as well as the total school program, is the subject of this film. Since Title V of the Elementary Secondary Education Act is concerned with improving state education agencies, the Regional Education Agencies Project worked with and through the Alabama State Department of Education. An Office of International Education was created in the State Department of Education. The department is directed by Mr. G.W. Hawes. The State Department of Education, in turn, arranged with the University of Alabama for the operation of the experimental project at Goshen School. Appointed by the State Superintendent of Education, a board of advisors, including Dr. Paul G. Orr, Associate Dean of the University of Alabama College of Education, Mr. John Stewart, Director of International House, Jacksonville State University, and Dr. Harold Collins, Superintendent of Pike County Schools. They provided much of the guidance for the Goshen experiment. While Mr. G.W. Hawes served as director of the project for the State Department of Education, doctoral students from the University of Alabama provided much of the guidance necessary to make the project a success. Although the initial purpose of the project is to develop curriculum materials dealing with international relations, the results regarding interpersonal relations have proven to be invaluable. The materials produced and the results of constant participation will provide valuable information for schools throughout Alabama and other states. Several agencies played important roles in the successful conduct of the Goshen Project. The Pike County Board of Education made it possible for Goshen to become a meaningful laboratory. The school staff supplied much of the energy needed to do the job. Sessions ranged from classroom activities to highly informative meetings conducted by experts such as Dr. Goodson and Dr. Gomez from the Regional Education Agency. The State Department of Education, through consultants, provided leadership and continuing assistance for all phases of the project. The University of Alabama College of Education worked on the program with staff personnel. And a number of doctoral students worked directly with teachers and students on an intensive basis. Goshen was selected for a pilot study in international education since it, of all available schools, met the largest number of criteria. Its training, a total enrollment of slightly over 450. Standard curriculum, and patrons and teachers responsive to new ideas and change. A prime concern of the Goshen experiment was to gain insights regarding the development of intercultural experiences for students in all our public schools. Cooperation with other agencies, such as visits by international students from the International House at Jacksonville State University, have provided meaningful experiences. Instructional model packets have been developed which should provide teachers in all phases of the curriculum with a concrete workable means of improving instruction in international education. The instructional packets include suggestions for activities, guidelines, units of work, and suggestions of instructional materials which have been used successfully in the classroom at Goshen. The variety of activities has played an important role in making the Goshen Project a success. Person-to-person contact through visits from natives of countries being studied have brought Latin America closer to these Goshen students. Soccer has been added to the activities as a result of the project. Exchange of student newspapers with Latin American schools has proven to be an effective aspect of the Goshen experiment. An exhibit at the Pike County Fair informed area residents of the program underway at Goshen and provided an opportunity for students to explore new areas. Classroom activities followed by PTA programs for the purpose of informing parents of items learned have added much to the curriculum. Probably the most impressive experiences have been the visits of students from Jacksonville's International House. Sessions, such as the one shown here, were mutually beneficial to international students and Goshen students. One elementary student remarked, "They're just like me." The Goshen School was used as a workshop to carry out intensive experiments in social and instructional activities. which provided cross-cultural experiences for students. The experiment also provided a realistic environment for doctoral students and State Department consultants to observe the reaction of teachers and students under unique but typical circumstances. Printed materials and reports indicating the results of the Goshen experiment and examples of packets are available from the State Department of Education. The International Education Project has had an impact not only at Goshen, but throughout Alabama and other states. Written reports have been disseminated widely and are available from the University of Alabama College of Education and the State Department of Education. During a recent exhibit on Pike County schools at the U.S. Office of Education in Washington, the Goshen Project was exhibited by Goshen Principal James Baker. All who visited the exhibition were impressed and pleased with the results. Dr. Edith Greer, Education Program Specialist from the U.S. Office of Education, who's worked closely with the Regional Educational Agency, was especially pleased with the activities of the Goshen Project. The personal impact of the Goshen experiment on all concerned is probably the most important, yet the most difficult to assess at this time. We know for sure that much has been gained from the Goshen experiment. Educators have carried new ideas from Goshen. A former coordinator, Les Lee, is now head of international education at Northern Arizona State University. And most important, State Department of Education consultants have assisted teachers throughout the state with the experiences gained at Goshen. To quote Dr. Paul Orr, Associate Dean of the University of Alabama College of Education, the Goshen Project has had and will continue to have profound implications. We have learned much in the Goshen Project about how certain dimensions of international education can be used to enrich curriculum, and we now feel better prepared to create educational programs more relevant to the world in which we live. Because the Alabama State Department of Education consultants have had opportunities to become involved in the development of international programs, they can better fulfill their roles in the program leadership in the state. Teacher preparation programs can be improved as a result of the project. World responsibility. Senator John Sparkman of Alabama summed up the importance of programs such as the Goshen Project during a recent visit to his office. When asked if he thought international understanding was important, the senator responded,
"Oh, by all means, we ought to start from the primary grades and come up through the schools, through the universities, graduate study, and so forth, sharpening the understanding of our own people as to the great necessity for this in the world in which we're living today." Yes, I think that there never was a time in the world when there was greater need for international understanding and cooperation than today, brought about by the communications that we have now, by the terrible threat that hangs over us of possible nuclear destruction. The only way I think that we can save civilization in the world is through better understanding among nations.